Don't give me no Bammer weed. We don't smoke that in the SFC. Don't give me no Bammer weed. We don't smoke that in the SFC. Now there's some Reggie. We got another Reggie belt alert. If y'all ready, then stay ready. If you're not ready, then get ready. We got to talk about some Reggie. Shout out to RBL Posse, Yay area. Don't give me no Bammer weed. We don't smoke that in the SFC. I got the breaking news for you. Some news you can use. And it's not particularly great news. In this video, your boy Ego, I'm going to break it down for you. Subscribe to the channel. Also, follow me on social media, where I dropped the hits. Boxing Ego 1 on the gram. Now, Reggie belt alert, right? News has just come out that Ryan Garcia and Rolando Romero will now be fighting for the WBA World Welterweight title. Wow. Wow. Good old boxing. The WBA World Welterweight title. Now, shout out to Pacquiao. I believe he's going to fight for that Reggie belt. I want to, yeah. Now, I know some of you guys don't get it. There's a hint right there on the screen. Jerron Boots in this. Y'all need me in this boxing game to break it down. What would you guys do without me to give you guys perspective? The best in the business, and it's not even close. Some people are like, hey, come on, Ego, what's the big deal? I don't see anything wrong with this because I don't know about boxing. I started this video by saying, don't give me no Bammer weed. We don't smoke that in the SFs. That should have gave you a clue as to what I'm talking about. But I know. I have different level of boxing fans, so let me just splash right into it. Ryan and Rolly, I'm going to say it again. They are fighting for a version of the WBA belt at welterweight. What's the problem with that? For starters, Ryan, let's talk about Ryan. He's never fought at welterweight. Rolly, let's talk about Rolly. He's never fought at welterweight, right? So just based on that, these guys are moving up to a division where we don't even know how they're going to look, and they're contending for a version of the belt. Kind of bizarre. And the haters, when Errol Spence was ranked with the WBC at 154, coming off of a loss, right? People were like so mad, like, how is Errol ranked? He hasn't done anything at 154. But again, boxing has a lot of fake media and fake fans and fake content creators who, for certain fighters, oftentimes PBC fighters, black fighters, things like that, where they'll put up this big stink and be like, why is Errol Spence fighting for a title? How does he deserve this? He's never fought, blah, 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 at 154. But they'll have no problem with this. Beyond that, let's talk about Ryan. Ryan Garcia is coming off of a fight that got overturned because he tested positive for Ostarine. How does boxing reward Ryan, who's, a big star, big name, but he gets rewarded by getting to fight in a big money fight as the main event, and he comes back after this year layoff, and his first fight back, he just gets a title opportunity, apparently. So boxing is rather comical. You can see that it is very dirty, very corrupt, and there's no way you could say boxing really cares about the problems internally like drug cheat, because you wouldn't reward something like if your child got straight F's on their report card, you probably don't take them out for pizza, ice cream, and buy them a PlayStation 5. You know, I'm not a parent, so I don't know. But for me, that's pretty apparent. Get it? I'm not a parent, but it's apparent. That's a bar. So for me, I mean, I don't believe in rewarding bad behavior. And the fact remains, you know, despite Ryan's tainted supplement, he did have something in his system, and there's a strict liability. You're responsible for what's in your body. Pause. You're responsible for that. But let me take off the coat. Hold on. We got to really cook on this boxing stuff. Hold on. Let me hop about the blazer, loosen up the tie, step inside the booth. Superman is alive. So, a big issue. I've already told you some issues, but let's talk about a real big issue from a boxing perspective. So, remember I said, and I pointed that picture of Boots, and I said, pay attention. That's a hint to what really got me aggy with this news of Ryan and Rolly. You know, because some of the fans are going to say, oh, you're hating. Let them get a belt. This is why it's stupid. Y'all want to see? Of course you do. Boom. A month before, this fight has been announced for the same platform, dazn, right? Ennis versus Stanionis. Claim the crown. Boots is the IBF champion. Oh, yeah. What is that on his shoulder? That's Stanionis with the WBA belt. Wow. And if you look at the bottom, it says April 12th for the IBF, the WBA, and Ring Magazine World Welterweight Unification. So they're fighting at welterweight, mind you, for those three belts. Ring belt, WBA belt, and Jaron Ennis's IBF belt, right? So a month before April 12th, true welterweights, true champions are fighting for three belts, including the WBA belt. So what is this Reggie belt that Ryan and Rolly, who again have never fought at the division, what are they fighting for? It just sounds stupid. This is what I'm talking about. I've been on record and I stated that in boxing, these belts don't matter. They have totally confused the game. The belts are cool. It's just an extra incentive. But in terms of drawing and being a star and pay-per-view, people aren't tripping off the belts. These are the reasons. Alphabet belts, people are getting belts based on politics and stuff. How does Ryan get a belt, you know, coming off of a fight that didn't happen because it was overturned and a positive test fail? And then on the same network, they got to advertise two fights, Boots Ennis for the WBA belt and a unification for the two other belts I went over. And then they got to say, hey, but tune in a couple weeks later, Ryan and Rolly are fighting in the same weight class, 147, for a WBA belt too. To a casual fan, this would have to be highly confusing. This just sounds stupid to me. This is why I've been on record for years saying these belts don't matter. The belts don't matter. And most people understood where I was coming from. But I did, per usual, because I'm an online personality, receive some pushback. And they're like, you don't know what you're talking about, Ego. Yeah, of course the belts matter. Everybody cares about the belts. Whatever. David Benavidez and David Morrell just fought, and they probably had an interim belt. But the real belts are between Beterbiev and Bivol. But people were so excited for Benavidez and Morrell, which actually turned out to be an amazing, epic fight. So that didn't stop me from wanting to see Benavidez Morrell because of the undisputed fight that's coming later this month. Just like this. If you like Ryan and Rolly, cool. They have a good backstory. They don't like each other. Both guys got power. Makes sense. Makes sense, right? But you don't have to do all this extra to try to sell the fight. And that's exactly what's happening. You have a fight that was overturned. You have one win. And then you got stopped and quit versus Tank Davis. And no fights in the can. The Rolly fight is not even listed on BoxRec, which is a whole separate issue, right? These are the problems I've talked about in boxing. You got Turkey and people are like, oh, he's saving boxing and DAZN is doing so well. Look, they don't even have the fight listed, but they're telling you it's coming, and we're hearing all the stuff about the belts before we get an actual press conference, before we get an actual fight. Now, for Rolly, same deal. He got one win, which was kind of a hard watch against Manuel James, and then he got knocked out by Pitbull. Some people thought he arguably lost and it was kind of a premature stoppage here, and then he lost by knockout to Tank. So arguably, Rolly took 3 losses back-to-back, and he got one fight, and he's fighting for a belt. Now, I know Rolly, so I'm not saying it to condemn him. Get it how you live. I'm just saying for the sport of boxing, this is what makes it confusing when it comes to trying to keep up with this stuff. You're like, hold on. So Ryan's fight versus Devin didn't count. He tested positive, but then he's fighting for a title. But then weeks before, Boots and Ennis are fighting for the same sanctioning body's title, among other titles. So you got a real, and this is both on DAZN, and you guys don't want to give flack to Turkey. You don't want to give flack to DAZN, but to me, this is boneheaded that they even did this, right? You're advertising a real, true, great welterweight fight, despite Stanionis and Boots maybe don't have the same size name. Look, Riyadh season, right? Boots promotion, etc. This is a real welterweight fight. It has the makings to be a great fight, and it's significant, but then you're lessening the significance by making a fight that could be a commercial fight, which I don't have no problem with. You're supposed to on your calendar have a mixture of different fights. Some fights might be all action, some might be significant in nature, some might be a chess match. I get that. I don't have no problem with that. But the game gets watered down when everything's for a title, and then you got people pulling strings to try to like amp up and soup up a fight, so they're making it for a title when it's really not even that type of fight deserving of a title, right? It's a good fight. I want to see Ryan and Rolly, no beef with that. But you're messing up your own product. Imagine if you were a drug dealer, right? And you had Blue Magic, a name brand like Pepsi. I guarantee it my dollar, huh? You had pure product. And then the same dealer was putting out a watered down product. You're going to turn off some of the fiends because what if they cop your cheaper, Reggie product, and then you really have Blue Magic and they couldn't afford it, so they just get your cheap stuff, and then they're like, this is weak. This is horrible, right? So it kind of waters down your brand when if all you had was Blue Magic, that's what you would be known for, right? So I don't believe in these contrived situations where Ryan and Rolly, they already got a backstory. They have the sparring stuff. They don't like each other. Rolly's a talker. Ryan's been talking. You didn't have to do this to try to make it appear better. The fight already was good as is. So to me, this just makes it look sus when you're trying to add all these factors, because again, my whole statement on the belts, and I'm saying it doesn't really matter, belts don't matter. This is why. This is a precise reason why. For example, the winner of Ryan Rolly, whoever wins, can they whoop Jaron Ennis versus Stanionis winner? You let me know that in the comment section. Because if they can't, and then most fans feel that they can't, this proves that it's watered down. Because you're going to have two champions, and the populace of boxing will know or feel that the champion of Boots in this fight is cream of the crop at welterweight. And I would venture to say that most people wouldn't pick Rolly to beat Boots or Stanionis, and they wouldn't pick Ryan to beat Boots or Stanionis. So in boxing, we kind of want to see who's the baddest on the planet, who's the man, who's the woman. Like Clarissa Shields keeps showing she's the GOAT. She's whooping all these other chicks. Cool. We know her as the baddest, the GOAT. That's what boxing should be on, where you have this kumite of sorts, and then the last man standing proverbially is the person who, you know, is ready and not Reggie. But when you have it all convoluted like this with so many different belts, and, you know, you got a UK belt, you got an intercontinental belt, you got novelty fight belts like boxers versus MMA fighters, and the MMA fighter never fought in boxing, but they're fighting for a belt. You know, it just looks goofy. That's why I keep telling you guys. And I like it because all I have to do is keep talking boxing. And even if it didn't make sense to you up front, in the end, it will make sense. Now, what I've said many years ago about these belts, you guys are starting to see, because you know there's really no justification for a man failing the PED test, and then his first fight back, he is fighting for a title in a brand new division when him and his opponent both took losses in recent order. How does that happen? And the same company, dazn, as I've said throughout this video, they're having a true welterweight fight. So you just actually hurt your product by trying to confuse it, and instead of consolidating belts, you're just adding to the chaos, right? If you want to do, like, it's like, think about them singing shows like The Voice or American Idol. The goal is to send people to Hollywood Week and stuff, and then consolidate it down to, this is the Voice winner, this is the American Idol winner. Boxing is so goofy that it doesn't do that. It doesn't say like, this is the welterweight everybody should get behind because this is the person who's beating everybody. Maybe back in the day it did, but this current generation of boxing, that's not what we're seeing. Instead, it's about money and politics and, you know, moving chess pieces how you want and trying to soup up or make certain fights appear more appealing to, like, oh, Rolly and Ryan are fighting for a belt. Amazing. I got to watch this. But, I mean, nobody's going to believe it. Nobody's going to believe that this is the top welterweight over Jaron Ennis, Stanionis, Brian Norman, and Mario Barrios, the actual true champions. So I really don't like this move, especially particularly, like, of course, I've seen fights and didn't even really talk about it if it had an interim belt because I didn't care. Like David Benavidez, David Morrell, that's because we know it's a great fight. Everybody believes that outside of Better Be of Bevo, who are already fighting each other, that Morrell and Benavidez are probably the nicest guys up there. So I don't have a problem with that. See, people try to bring up my old talking points and old videos and try to confuse you to make it look like I'm inconsistent. I'm highly consistent. Everything in boxing I look at on a case-by-case basis to see and check for continuity, see what makes sense. This is his own situation, given that Ryan and Rolly, neither one of them have fought at welterweight, and they are coming off recent losses. Ryan coming off of a PED test fail. Now, what does this say about the Haniacs and Turkey and Riyadh season and DAZN, what they're doing to Devin Haney? Devin got a fight on the undercard. That's already bad enough, against a guy coming off a loss. So a worse fight in most people's eyes. And he's fighting a guy like Ramirez, while Ryan gets the bigger name and probably the better build-up because of the two personalities. And then on top of that, now they're fighting for a title. So in boxing, you get rewarded for cheating. You get rewarded for, you know, getting your fight overturned and stuff like that. And then Devin Haney, he's the one that got jobbed in the Osterine stuff. And Turkey put him on the undercard. And I don't think his fight is for a title. You know what I mean? So this is crazy. So it kind of indirectly tells you what they think about Devin Haney. Devin Haney's brand, he not the A side. This move shows it to me, which is what I've been saying, because this is like, we're getting behind the A side and we're going to boost up their event because Ryan's a bigger star and this is all politics and this is our main event. But it looks terrible for Devin Haney, who I told you he had few options And he's so desperate to land an option post Ryan Garcia fight where he's settling for this. I'll fight on the cheater's undercard. The guy who cheated me, I'm going to fight on his co-main or whatever, undercard. The guy that cheated me gets to fight for a belt, and I'm fighting the guy for loss. Rolly at least is coming off one win, and I'm fighting the guy for loss. And then now we find this out that they incentivized it, and Ryan and Rolly are fighting for a belt. Looks very bad for the Haneyacks and Devin Haney, because for the last year, we've been hearing them call Ryan a cheater, despicable, deplorable, reprehensive, and all types of monsters and racist and stuff like that. But then all that you just said got rewarded with the belt on dazn on Riyadh season. Deuce.